Welcome to the show. See what's going on here. Pretty sure we got a show going, right? Oh, that's weird. Interesting. We're live on Twitter. Oh, there we go. Now we're live on YouTube. Interesting. Okay. Well, that's good. All right. You know what? Let's do this again. That was a weird start to the stream. Kind of happy most of you missed the top of it. All right, let's do this real quick. Hey, welcome back everyone to a totally not hiccup start to another episode of Lou Reviews, baby. Welcome back. I see we got some regs in the chat already. Welcome, Quest, Lord Ludacris, really happy dude, Simon Fly, Justin S, the Rod T, East Coast Tina. Love right back at you, my lady. Alrighty, man, we got a full show today. Whole lot of stuff going on. Before we get started, of course, welcome to Lou Reviews, the destination for critical thinking in the realm of the unexplained. I'm your host, Luis Jimenez. Before we get started, please like, share, subscribe if you're on the podcast. Rate and review. If you want to support the show outside of that, we've got links in the description to Patreons and things like that, so please consider that while you enjoy the dulcet tones of skepticism. All right, let's do this. Let's do it. Holy cow. So this has been an incredible week when it comes to holy cow, why is this music still playing? There we go. When it comes to the UAP discussion, we have had a lot of things go down just in this week. You know, we had the interview with Dave Grush that was hailed as Dave Grush tells me everything, and it turned out to be just Dave Grush agrees with everything. We had what else did we have this week, you guys? I mean, just now, well, okay, so we had the NASA presentation with Bill Nelson, which we're gonna watch here shortly and go over and critique just like we do everything else. We had just today of course, we had the mummies. Sorry, before I get to today, we had the mummies and Ryan Graves being shamed and all his credibility used by Jaime Maussan. Fell for the biggest prank in probably Mexican legislative history, and used his good name to make the internet go crazy about fake aliens. And so now that's the huge meme today, are those mummies. Congratulations. You look like an absolute joke. So many people warned you. We did a whole episode about the reaction to those mummies. So many people warned Ryan Graves, especially here on Twitter and social media. It was insane. He even responded to it and basically ignored the advice. And then, of course, he issued an apology. And it's so hilarious how just, not everyone, obviously, but a lot of folks who were very upset about it are kind of just turned around and were like, oh man, good job. Good on you for apologizing and recognizing that you did the wrong thing. You know, even though in that very apology, he's still pumping his company. Like, he's just there to sell his wares, even when he's apologizing. It's just fascinating to me. And then just today, we had the ICIG respond to Tim Burchett and the UAP crew, congressional crew, I guess we'll call them, since everything is a crew these days. Let me grab some water here. We also switch to this view so you guys can look and watch with me here as I read this. If you're listening to podcasts, if you're finding the show on podcasts, check us out on YouTube. The whole uncut show is on YouTube, so you could check us out there. If you're listening to podcasts, you're getting an edited version of the show in a lot of cases. So yeah, check us out. So what we're reading is the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community from Washington, D.C. This is an unclassified document put out by D. Dean Johnson. Again, he's always the first to these things. Dated September 15th, and it's addressed to the Honorable Tim Burchett, Nancy Mace, Jared Moskowitz, Eric Burleson, Anna Paulina Luna, and Andy Ogles. Ogles. I don't know. Ox. We'll go with that. Dear Representative Burchett, so. I write in response to your letter dated August 21st, 2023, in which you reference testimony provided by Mr. David Grush at the July 26, 2023 hearing of the Subcommittee on National Security, the Border, and Foreign Affairs of the Committee on Oversight and Accountability of the House of Representatives regarding unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAP. Say that 80 times fast. In your letter, you requested that the Office of the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community, ICIG, answer questions regarding, quote, which intelligence community members, positions, facilities, military bases, or other actors are involved, end quote, with alleged UAP programs, either directly or indirectly. ICIG takes seriously its responsibility to provide whistleblowers with the appropriate, secure, and lawful channels for conveying complaints and information to Congress. The lawful channel Congress established is the urgent concern process found at 50 USC, and then it's basically just a paragraph within this this law, and so which provides direct avenue for members of the intelligence community to provide information on matters meeting the statutory definition of an urgent concern, quote, urgent concern, to the Congressional Intelligence Committee. ICIG also takes seriously its own responsibility to support congressional oversight and does so in the manner specified and required by statute by keeping the Congressional Intelligence Committee fully and currently informed about significant problems and deficiencies related to the programs and activities within the responsibility and the authority of the Director of the National Intelligence, or the DNI. So, and the necessity for and progress of corrective action. ICIG also fulfills other congressional reporting responsibilities in accordance with applicable law and provides such definition to the appropriate congressional oversight committees. Additionally, and importantly, ICIG meets each of these reporting requirements while also complying with the important statutory restrictions that ensure ICIG protects the identities of whistleblowers and other witnesses. ICIG also provides respectful consideration and due weight to requests from individual members of Congress, considering factors such as ICIG resource constraints, competing priorities, and whether doing so would it interfere with ICIG's ability to respond in a timely manner to duly authorized oversight requests. As a matter of discretion, ICIG notes that it has not conducted any audit, inspection, evaluation, or review of the alleged UAP programs within the responsibility and authority of the DNI that would enable this office to provide a fulsome response to your questions. Please let me know if you have any questions regarding to this matter. Sincerely, Thomas Moynihan, or Monheim, Inspector General of the Intelligence Community, the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence of the House of Representatives, the Select Committee on Intelligence of the Senate. Okay, so essentially, of course, the UFO community is absolutely pissed off because the ICIG hasn't even, it's been 2 years and they haven't even looked into David Grush's claims. Now, you can take this two ways. And this is a really long way of saying, nah, we didn't look at it. We didn't look at it. We didn't look into David Grush's claims. We could, but due to the weight to the requests from individual members of Congress, i.e., more important shit, considering factors such as ICIG resources, resource constraints, competing priorities, and whether doing so would interfere with ICIG's ability to respond in a timely manner to duly authorized oversight requests. They're swamped with real world shit. And they just haven't been able to get to Dave Grush's aliens are killing Americans stories with no evidence. Why does this surprise people? And why are people taking this as like a slap in the face? This isn't a slap in the face. This is a cold bucket of water. If Dave Grush was saying something world changing that the ICIG would have to stop everything they're doing to go look at his claims. Let's say they did it and they found nothing. Now this topic is dead forever. Forever. It almost kind of wanted that to happen, right? I mean, obviously, any sane person would want the ICIG to investigate these claims. But also, any sane person would also agree that I understand why the ICIG hasn't gotten to it, because there's no evidence that comes with these claims. And when the UAPTF task force looks into this, or Arrow looks into this and looks into the 40 witnesses and they don't find nothing, and then you double that with NASA finding no evidence, and we're going to watch the presentation, no evidence of extraterrestrial life linked to UAP. They says they're there, right? But nobody's asking the question to Bill Nelson, well, the UAPs that we are seeing, has anyone said if they're ours, if it's our tech or an adversary's? Because that would be a pretty neat question to ask Bill Nelson. Like, what does he think there? What are the odds that he thinks those UAP are non-human intelligence controlled? I would love to know stuff like that. But we'll see the questions we get once we get there. So this is the big news of the day. This is the big thing that everybody's gonna freak out about, but nobody understands, like floods, earthquakes, hurricanes, healthcare, education, infrastructure, actual malfeasance within the government that's causing real problems, like spies, like intelligence breaches, things like that, genuine issues that the government's having internally that the ICIG would investigate, that they're using their resources competing and making sure that competing priorities are the first thing they look at. That's not unreasonable. And I hope that the ICIG gets to investigating Dave Grush's claims. But if you're asking for that because you believe Dave Grush, be careful what you ask for. Because once the ICIG gets into this, they're going to get into this, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But if it turns out that Dave Grush, and he's already said this 3 times in his latest interview with Jesse Michaels, giving himself the out of, well, if I fell for this, oh, I would be the dumbest guy in the intelligence community. Like, he's already giving himself outs to, oh yeah, I might have fallen for a false, terrible information pushed by people just trying to use me. And that theory is out there, and it's not that crazy of a theory, especially considering, I mean, Steve Cambion's bringing this up, and it's a very good point. like his, when it comes to his military record, he was essentially in a building. He, as far as anyone can tell, hasn't seen live combat, and the reason why he has PTSD is because his best friend took his own life. That doesn't classify, as PTSD on the level of the PTSD that people are putting on you and that you're selling of yourself. Like, you're using that acronym because it's popular and it's a catchphrase now, PTSD. Like, people just slap that on everything, it feels like. And, there are genuine veterans that have been through hell and back and have genuine PTSD from the experiences they faced under the pressures of combat and losing best friends and comrades right next to you. As far as anyone could tell, Dave Grush hasn't experienced any of that stuff. He was an intelligence guy. So this PTSD thing is questionable, and then compounded with the fact that he was committed to a mental institution. That's just fact. 2 of his wives were afraid enough to call the police on him because they were worried he was going to hurt himself. And they were worried for themselves. So that's why those things matter. Like, take the emotion and all of the stuff out of it. Like, these things matter. And so when the ICIG eventually gets around to this, and I think they will, because they've got, was it 6 senators or congressmen, that they addressed this to, like, basically saying, guys, we don't have the fucking time or the bandwidth to chase alien X-Files stories because you guys think it's real. There's nothing, I'm sure, ever that the ICIG has ever come across that goes, oh my God, I think we have aliens. Never, ever. That's not something this office deals with. It's just wild to me that these congressmen are shocked that it's taken 2 years and they haven't looked at anything. Welcome to government. Everything takes 2 to 5 years to get processed, except for our taxes. They get those every fucking year on time. Ain't no slacking in that. It's wild, man. People are going to make such a big deal out of this. And it's just, the ICIG has bigger fish to fry. And you're screaming to yourself, what could be bigger than aliens visiting Earth? There's no proof of that. And if there was, I don't think Dave Grush has provided anything remotely close to getting to it. Remotely close. but we'll see. I think eventually the ICIG will get to this. And when they do, man, oh man, whatever the results are, will you accept them? I will. Turns out that Dave Grush was right. And I'm the idiot here. I'll up 180 again, baby. And I'm yours till the end of time. If the ICIG comes back and says, yep, not only are all these programs exist, here's where they are, here's who runs them, here's what they're working on. Yeah, no, this is an issue because this is money that the American public and lawmakers didn't know was being funded to do all of this stuff. The ICIG has the power to find those programs if it's tasked to, which it has the power to. It says right there in the letter, yeah, we can totally do this. We just don't have the time. So, yeah, that's what happened today. And then yesterday, and this sort of coincides with the NASA presentation. And that is that NASA held the name of the new director of UAP research in that presentation. They announced a new director, but he didn't speak. They didn't give his name. And they were also at the same time saying how transparent they were going to be. And so people were like, what the hell? You guys announce a new director? You don't even give us his name? Like, what's the scoop? And then within 12 hours, I believe, of the conference, I believe it was the same day, they released the name of, it was yesterday. I mean, this is from yesterday from John Greenwald. So they released the name of the new director. And so this is the press release. NASA shares UAP independent study report names director. While NASA still is evaluating the report and assessing the independent study team's findings and recommendations, the agency is committed to contributing to the federal government's unified UAP effort by appointing Mark McInerney, Director of UAP Research. McInerney, McInerney? That's right. That feels right. Previously served as NASA's liaison to the Department of Defense, covering limited UAP activities for the agency. In the director role, he will centralize communications, resources, and data analytical capabilities to establish a robust database for the evaluation of future UAP. He also will leverage NASA's expertise in artificial intelligence, machine learning, and space-based observation tools to support and enhance the broader government initiative on UAP. Since 1996, he has served various positions at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the National Hurricane Center. So this is a gentleman that looks at the atmosphere a whole lot, and he's insanely qualified. And what we'll learn here is that turns out NASA has been getting members of this UAP team, this independent study. Members have been harassed and received death threats to no end. They are looked up on their LinkedIn. They are found through that, and then they are harassed by groups / group of people that scare them enough to tell their employer, hey, I'm scared. Like, is this worth me even looking at? Is this something to worry about? To where a point, where they have NASA security looking into the individuals and local authorities, and they're working together to hopefully solve the issue. And I hope they solve the issue with punishment. I really do. I really, really do. Because it's gotten to a point where it's not just, again, I mean, we say this all the time. It's not just something that happens on Twitter. Now scientists from NASA are getting it. And they're trying to help. They're trying to help your cause. They're genuinely looking at the data in an independent, scientific way, and you're hounding and harassing them when they put out information that you don't like. And so we're going to get into, let's see here. What else did I have bookmarked before we get into the NASA presentation? Oh, let me go back. These are not my bookmarks. These are my bookmarks. All right, so this is a that was made pretty quick, but we'll go over that. Like, yeah, this is something that came out shortly after the presentation from a really popular ufologist in the community, Astral, who's got 12,500 followers. And he says, who's worse at doing their job, Bill Nelson of NASA or Sean Kirkpatrick of Arrow? We already know the hate and the vitriol this guy's got. The UFO community last year was loving this guy. Before yesterday, they loved this guy because he is a firm believer that as vast as the galaxies are, there's no doubt in his mind that there's intelligent life out there. Coupled with the fact that our pilots are seeing strange things, he's open to it. Like, he's your biggest champion. And this is what the UFO community does to their biggest champion. They throw him under the fucking bus. They throw him under the bus because they think that these people have all the answers, that they've got the keys to all the files and all the secrets. They don't. They don't. I genuinely believe Bill Nelson wants an answer to this. I genuinely believe the independent NASA scientific study is doing exactly that. A scientific independent study. And that takes years. Years. So when they only give you an update every 6 months, that's why. Because analyzing data is tedious, it takes a long time, and they want to be 1,000,000,000% sure. But UFO community doesn't want to hear that. I mean, and this is a picture we'll see in the presentation, like this NASA balloon. It's, if somebody saw that and didn't know that's a weather balloon, they think it's an alien ship. Some people would think, oh, it's communicating with me. Look, it's turning when I say hi. I must be communicating with it. It has a message of we have to save our planet and we need to treat each other better. And I'm important. That's what it's telling me. That happens. That happens. Anyway, let's check out this NASA video, shall we? Let's do this. It's so funny how the stream started. Man, it took a hot minute to start, but I'm glad it did. Oh, nice. Our boy Be Squidding, he tweeted today. Let's see what he said. Let's see what he said. Let's see what he said. So Rather Be Squid, our boy, tweeted an hour ago. So many claims of concrete evidence. George Knapp has element 115. Ross Coulthard knows where giant craft is. Lou Elizondo and the Signal have a sensor that allows to see the NHI craft, but they all keep it a secret. Your opinion may vary, but I trust NASA and Arrow over them. Bravo, my man. Bravo. I miss the squid, man. Don't forget, and by the way, Local 556 made a great video last night. If You want to go watch it. OEFTF11. That's his at OEFTF11. Local 556. He's a veteran. He served in Afghanistan, and he's got some really strong opinions and insights to the service and records of Lou Elizondo, Dave Grush, and these, whistleblowers. Really, really interesting, and heartfelt. I mean, the only critique I have of it is, and maybe this is just a military cultural thing, but the R word is used quite a bit to describe people that are not intelligent. And so that kind of hits me a little hard. But I think I know where it's coming from. I'm not excusing it. I think if anything turns people off, I just wanted to warn people, so it doesn't catch you off guard. But what he's saying about veterans and the service and PTSD in particular, because he suffers from PTSD, and he's not afraid to talk about it. And the claims that these guys are making, in regards to PTSD, especially when it comes to Dave Grush and the service of Lou Elizondo and the stories that he's said about, General Petraeus are from a movie. Like, it's a really great breakdown of these guys from one of their own, from someone who was actually there, walking through the streets of Afghanistan behind a Humvee, not knowing where he might get shot from or who's gonna die. Whether or not you agree he should be there, you disagree with our foreign policy, he's there. He's sacrificing. He's putting his life on the line. And how does the UFO community treat him? Absolute garbage. Simply because he's questioning these people. And he came in wanting to believe, just like all of us, having the fascination, having the curiosity, having the, I think in a lot of cases, intelligence, like the intelligence to actually sift through the data. It just, once you sift through the data, you get to a point, you hit a wall, and you're like, oh, this is bullshit. But then that's when the choice comes in. That's where I think some folks lose their, not intelligence, but their ability to discern, their ability to critically think. And so this is what I love about Local 556 and the videos that he made, is that it's a critical breakdown and a scathing breakdown from a veteran that's actually got the bona fides and the proof where he served, and he's not afraid to talk about it. And the idea that someone is claiming PTSD and that's the reason they got committed to a mental institution, and at one point was an alcoholic, and making all of the excuses of why he did what he did, from a veteran who actually suffers from that illness, or that mental illness. It's a perspective only he can have. And so I appreciate the voice. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out. So if you want to find that video, I retweeted it last night. You could just go find him. And yeah, he's got, like I said, he's got a YouTube channel. So go check it out. And I'm glad to see that Rather's back a little bit here on Twitter. And he also responds to him. So Local 556 says, don't forget Grush saying he could request more permission from Dopsar to give more info on the dead alien pilots, but he doesn't want to. And that's another thing. That's the only thing we missed, I think, well, I missed. I can't say we, I'm the only one here, but that's the thing that I missed in that whole Dave Grush tells me everything. He told us that he can get more permission from the Dopsar to talk about the alien bodies, but it's just too much paperwork. He just doesn't want to do it, you guys. Like, I just don't, I just felt like I was this guy who was chosen to do this amazing thing, but I just don't want to do the paperwork. Yeah, but Jack Valet, he's a genius, right? It's just bullshit. To which Rather replies, it seems fairly clear to me that Grusch believes the Mexico alien mummies are genuine and that the documents he refers to are MJ-12 and Mussolini files, which are widely regarded as a hoax. But maybe I'm wrong. Someone close to him should ask him. I fucking love this guy, and I miss him. Hopefully he gets back into. I doubt it. It's just like, all these guys are just like over it, man. Like they're over the crazy aspect of it. This just the silly crazy aspect of it. Anyway, so okay, let's get to this NASA hearing here. Go ahead and turn this up for you guys.
Of this particular independent study team. I will ask everybody in the room to please silence your cell phones. We will get started.
And by the way,
with everybody giving a few opening remarks.
Let's go ahead and just say fair use. I don't think NASA's going to flag this, but it's a CBS thing. So I've got the link in the description. I actually think I've got the NBC one down below because it's just the volume was too low, so I went with this link instead. Either way, you could go check it at your leisure, but fair use. This is transformative work. We're educating the public and critiquing the videos we are sharing. This is covered under fair use and allowable by law. Thank you very much.
We will take questions both in the room and then from the phones. And for now, I will hand it over to the administrator.
I'm going to try and not pause this one because I'm not afraid so much of this one, but I will talk over a little bit.
NASA searches for the unknown in air and space. It's in our DNA. From digging on Mars with the Perseverance rover in those little titanium tubes that we intend to go back and pick up, digging in a dry lake bed near the mouth of a river. Now we're going up to the top of the cliff where the scientists feel that there could be the best examples of if there were life there millions of years ago. Whether we're dealing with Perseverance or the James Webb Space Telescope, which searches for exoplanets with signs of habitability, we are looking for signs of life, past and present. And it's in our DNA to explore and to ask why things are the way they are. In June of last year, NASA commissioned an independent study team to examine unidentified anomalous phenomena. We did so with a few goals in mind. First, to examine how NASA can use our expertise and instruments to study UAP from a scientific perspective. Second, shift the conversation about UAP from sensationalism to science. And to make sure that whatever we find or whatever we recommend, to make sure that information is shared transparently around the world. There's a global fascination with UAP. On my travels, one of the first questions I often get is about these sightings. And much of that fascination is due to the unknown nature of it. Think about it. Most UAP sightings result in very limited data. That makes it even more difficult to draw scientific conclusions about the nature of UAP. And so this independent study team brought together some of the world's leading scientists, data, and artificial intelligence experts, aerospace safety specialists, all with a specific charge from me, which is to tell how to apply the full focus of science and data to UAP. And this is the first time that NASA has taken concrete action to seriously look into UAP. And this independent study team was just that, independent. Now, NASA has a statutory authority to look for life in the universe. And when you think of the universe, and especially what we have learned from the James Webb Space Telescope, how vast that it is. We knew before, and it was a NASA scientist, Dr. John Mather, who got the Nobel that determined that the universe was 13.8 billion years old. And over the years, particularly accelerated in the last century, we have an understanding that, of course, ours is not the only galaxy. And there are billions and billions of galaxies, and each of those galaxies, including our own, have billions and billions of stars.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there real quick. Just obviously, right, this is all about science. This is all about the pursuit of the unknown, life, and their love of it, right? They're prefacing everything with like, look, we want these answers just as much as you do. The reason why I stopped is because Beverly Holmes chimed in with something really just perfect. She says, Local 556 made a needed specification between combat veterans and veterans with PTSD. It's a huge disservice to diminish our brothers in arms by lumping them all together. 100%. And Local 556 is here, and yeah, she nails it. Perfectly nails it. So I mean, anytime someone could say something better than me, I'll read it. All right, let's go.
And with the James Webb looking at the exoplanets, we are now beginning to discover, and somewhere out there,
guys, I'm going to drop a link here pretty soon. If you want to call in after this presentation, share your thoughts. We'll take some calls. And
around a medium-sized sun or star at just the right distance, not too far, not too close, with a tilt in its axis that rotates, that has carbon, that will have a habitable atmosphere.
We're going to find that.
If you ask me, do I believe there's life in a universe that is so vast that it's hard for me to comprehend how big it is? My personal answer is yes. But I asked some of our scientists. As a matter of fact, the Washington Post editorial board asked us to come down to the question, what is the mathematical probability that there is life out there in the universe? And if you calculate in billions of stars, in billions of galaxies, that there's replicated what I just said, another stony planet. The answer was, what's the likelihood? At least 1 trillion. That's from our scientist. So we start this without any preconceived notions, but understanding that we're in a world of discovery. And we, NASA, have taken for the first time concrete action to seriously look into UAP. And this independent study team is exactly that. It's independent. They work to develop recommendations about how NASA could better examine them from a scientific perspective. And the top takeaway from the study is that there is a lot more to learn. The NASA independent study team did not find any evidence that UAP have an extraterrestrial origin, but we don't know what these UAP are.
Okay. Perfect timing, silly goose. So I agree. I love that Nelson is like, we're looking into them. We have found no proof of who, if they are non-human intelligence or extraterrestrial intelligence. With that said, we don't know. We don't know. They're clearly catching something. But my question is, what do they think they're catching? And how much of what they're catching and they're examining is, in fact, unknown? And I've also got some critiques for this, too. Like, I think when we get through this, like, they claim they're going to be transparent. Will they open source the data, the same data they're looking at once it's looked at and analyzed? I hope so. I'm sure there'll be a paper. It's a scientific independent study, so we're definitely going to get some science, a paper for sure, that will be put on the murder board. And let's see what the rest of the scientific community has to say. But Silly Goose says, I kind of felt that the NASA report was actually good for both sides of the debate. It's not aliens, but we don't know what it is, and it seems not explainable. I'd like people to dig a little more on that with him. So we'll see.
That's why I'm announcing that NASA has appointed a NASA director of UAP research.
Yes.
They are being tasked with developing and overseeing the implementation of NASA's vision for UAP research. We will use NASA's expertise to work with other agencies to analyze UAP. We will use AI and machine learning to search the skies for anomalies, as we have been searching the heavens and will continue to search the heavens for habitability. And NASA will do this transparently. So while today is a significant step for NASA, it's certainly not our final step. And we're going to share more with you, and I want to introduce you to Dr. Nikki Fox, who is the head of our Science Mission Directorate. Nikki.
Yay, Nikki Fox. Go get him, girl.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Administrator Nelson. Ooh. It's always tough to follow Bill. He's such a great speaker. But I want to thank the independent study team for their amazing service on the study and for their continued contributions towards the advancement of our nation's understanding of unidentified anomalous phenomena. UAP, as Bill just eloquently said, UAP are one of...
Oh, hey, this is just too funny. AAR, world to UFO skeptics. All you need is just one of those hundreds of alien recovered bodies to be real, and just one of the millions of UFO/UAP photos to be genuine, and you all look like idiots. You're right. Find me one. Find me one. Preferably one that's taken from two angles, and the people who took the photos are actually known, and the cameras and the metadata of the photos. Preferably. You know, we can't even get we don't even know how far the plane is from the Tic Tac or the gimbal or the the Go Fast we do. Anyway. I just love comments like that.
One of our planet's greatest mysteries, and it's really due to the limited number of high-quality data that surrounds such incidents and often renders them unidentifiable. While there are numerous eyewitness accounts and visuals associated with UAP, they're not consistent, they're not detailed, and they're not curated observations that can be used to make definitive scientific conclusions about the nature and the origin of UAP. The language of scientists is data, and data points towards a scientific conclusion to what the nature and the origin of UAP could be. That leads us to why we're here today. The independent study team's report is now public, and it can be found at science.nasa.gov/UAP. While NASA is still working to evaluate the report and to assess the independent study team's findings and recommendations, NASA is committed to immediately contributing to the federal government's unified UAP effort, and as you heard, we have appointed a director of UAP research. In their role, they will centralize communications, resources, and data analytical capabilities across the federal government to establish a robust database for the evaluation of any future data. Additionally, our Director of UAP Research will also leverage NASA's expertise in artificial intelligence, machine learning, and space-based observation tools that will support and enhance the broader government initiative into UAP. They will serve as NASA's point of contact for government entities, but especially for the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or ARROW. And this will ensure our coordinated efforts and effective communication channels. Beyond our Director of UAP Research, NASA will also advance citizen reporting by working with the public and commercial pilots to collect a broader set of data to add.
It's a good question. When did NASA become British? It's a good question. It's a good question. Well, why wouldn't they hire foreign scientists? But I guess it is a little jarring. It's just like, yeah, you expect everyone to be an American scientist at NASA. Is that wrong of us to think that? It's funny. It is funny. Anyway.
Add to the vast data repositories to not only contribute to a broader, more reliable data set for future UAP incidents, but to also contribute to the destigmatization of the important study of UAPs.
Yoshi says, can't help but think NASA is doing this for funding and publicity. I mean, I know NASA definitely has a funding issue.
With that, it is my great pleasure to hand over to Dr. Dan Evans, who is the NASA official responsible for supporting this amazing study.
Danny! Dan! By the way, it's the first time I'm watching this, the whole thing.
Good morning. I'd like to begin
Genuine
by
reactions
expressing
is what I'm
my
saying.
sincere thanks to NASA Administrator Bill Nelson for directing the study.
All right, another
NASA
British guy.
Believe that understanding UAP.
So this is Daniel Evans, Assistant Deputy Associate Administrator for Research Science Mission Directorate. And the other lady, just want to get her title in there too. She's Associate Administrator, Science Mission Directorate. All right. So just so this way we got everybody's. Ooh, look at that smile we freeze on. All right, not very 1226. Okay, there we go.
NASA believe that understanding UAP is vital for several reasons. First and foremost, it provides an opportunity for us to expand our understanding of the world around us. At NASA, we are committed to charting the uncharted, so this work aligns with who we are. Secondly, this study aims to enhance situational awareness. The presence of UAP raises serious concerns about the safety of our skies, and it's this nation's obligation to determine whether these phenomena pose any potential risks to airspace safety.
Okay, yeah. Edmund Starr says, I'm British and I found it odd. And now we've got two. And I definitely saw parts of this presentation, and I didn't pick up on it in parts of the presentation. And the first one that came up, I was like, it hit me, but it didn't really hit me till you called it out. And then now we got a second one. It is odd. It is odd. Like, these roles couldn't be filled. Let me just look at the titles again and remember 1304. Associate Administrator, Science Mission Directorate. Okay, so it sounds like she's got some science degrees, Nicola Fox. I'm assuming all these folks do. And Assistant Deputy or Associate Administrator for Research, because this is a researcher. We should probably get these resumes going.
Gave the team insights that will greatly enhance our nation's understanding of UAP going forward. The team's report, now available on NASA's website, stands as a testament to NASA's and the team's commitment to transparency, to the power of science, and to the unwavering quest for knowledge. We at NASA believe that studying UAP represents an exciting step forward in our journey to uncover the mysteries of the world around us. By embracing a scientific lens, we have ensured that our work is evidence-based and data-driven. And by valuing transparency and openness, we have aimed to foster trust and collaboration with the public. I'd like to conclude by extending my deepest gratitude to the team for their incredible dedication and service. Their efforts have been instrumental, and I truly appreciate the expertise and commitment that each of them have brought to this endeavor. And with that, I'll pass over to Dr. David Spergel, who chaired our study.
Dr. David Spergel. Okay. James Craig says Ryan Sprague is in Scotland. It must be a US-UK UFOs exchange program. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Okay, so this is doctor. So I'm assuming science doctor. See the title.
First and foremost, I'd like to extend our sincere gratitude to the NASA administrator,
President, Simons Foundation, and chair of the UAP Independent Study Team. Interesting.
for entrusting us with this pivotal study. Your faith in our capabilities has been a driving force behind the panel's approach. The panel's comprehensive study into unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAP, has led to several crucial findings, and I'd like to elucidate on our methodology and those findings this morning. We began by rigorously assessing the current state of UAP data. Our goal was not to repeat the work of the Arrow, but to understand the nature of the reports. Our goal was to produce a roadmap for NASA to contribute to the understanding of the nature of UAP events. We looked at NASA's assets. While they provide a comprehensive picture of the ocean, the Earth's surface and atmosphere for studying our evolving planet, they typically do not have the resolution needed for UAP events. However, by providing data on environmental conditions, they can complement other data on UAP. The current approach to UAP data collection has led to a limited sample of events and limited data. Stigma has limited reporting by pilots, both civilian and military, so we know there's missing data. For its analysis in other areas, NASA always takes a scientific approach of systematic data collection that involves calibrating instruments, multiple measurements, and ensuring sensor metadata. Most UAP events lack this quality of data. One of NASA's contribution to the broader...
Most UAP events lack this kind of data. It's clear that it's a data issue. It's a data issue. So none of those pictures, none of those videos, none of it from NASA, and as far as they can see, holds enough data to determine whether or not the origin or anything about these objects. I'd be shocked if they can even determine whether or not they're adversarial or our own tech in some cases.
Broader governmental effort to bring these methodologies to create a data set that's both reliable and extensive. And once we have a large sample of well-characterized events, AI and ML tools, which are proving to be powerful in so many other applications, will likely prove helpful in identifying interesting anomalies. It is essential to clarify, based on our current findings and methodology, that we find no evidence to suggest that UAP are extraterrestrial in origin.
No evidence.
Our focus is on understanding the phenomenon, however, regardless of the source. And previous work from the Arrow has shown that most events are explainable as planes, balloons, drones, weather phenomena, and instrument features. And in any search for interesting anomalies, the first step is to eliminate the chaff of conventional events before moving on to identify novel phenomena. In this, the public's role cannot be overstated. The panel envisioned a framework that leverages crowdsourcing, possibly via smartphone applications, to capture a broader spectrum of data, ensuring more eyes and ears on the ground. Lastly, we delved into the safety concerns UAP present within U.S. airspace. By integrating UAP collection within our current aviation reporting system, the panel believes we can provide insights into potential safety risks. NASA can reduce the stigma associated with pilots reporting anomalies, and fundamentally, by studying events we don't understand, we advance our understanding. So in conclusion, with a rigorous methodology, collaborative efforts, public engagement, NASA can be a key player in the whole of government approach to understanding UAP. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much to all of our speakers. We will start taking questions. For those in the room, we have a microphone over here that we would ask you to speak into. We will also be alternating with questions from those on the phone line. For those of you who are in the phone line, please press *1 to get onto the queue. We will try to answer as many as we can today. We'll see how it goes. Please, sir.
Thank you very much. This is directed to Mr. Nelson. Thank you for being here. Two quick questions. One is, how can you make the determination?
Senator Shermer. Senator Shermer. You're going to chase down a senator in the halls of Congress to ask him a question about UFOs. Get his name right. Get his name right. Schumer, James Fox. I know nobody wants to call you out on that, but that's why they were looking at you like you had 7 heads. You didn't say his name right.
Of what something isn't when we don't know what it is, and B, after a careful review of the data, if it's determined that some, underline the word some 10 times, UFOs or UAP originate from a non-human intelligence, what's the plan to disclose that to the public?
And can you identify yourself, please?
James Fox. Thank you.
I'm sorry, and what outlet?
Independent media. Thank you.
Well, let me repeat.
It's on.
Let me repeat what I said. I think it's important that you hear this word for word.
Listen.
The NASA independent study team did not find any evidence that UAP have an extraterrestrial origin. But we don't know what these UAP are.
All right.
The mission of NASA is to find out the unknown. I've said several times in my comments here today that we, NASA, deal openly and we will be transparent on this. And we're trying to address the question of there's so much concern that there's something locked up, classified, and that the American government is not being open. Well, we are the American government, and we are open, and we're going to be open about this. We don't Again, I'm going to repeat that statement, but we don't know what these UAP are, but we're going to try to find out.
Thank you very much. And is there a plan in place if it is determined that some of them represent or originate from a non-human intelligence to tell the public? Is there a plan? Or
If we are what I said we intend to be, which is transparent, you bet your boots.
You bet your boots, James Fox.
And I've tried to set the table for you by telling you what I personally believe in a universe that is so vast.
He's basically saying, I'm on your side here, dude. I'm on your side, but there's nothing. There's nothing here, man. There's nothing here. And we're being as transparent as we could possibly be. The government wants us here so we can get rid of the conspiracy thinking bullshit. That's why this panel exists. That's why they're adding levity to it. But that's why they're also prefacing it with, we want this to be real. Like, Bill Nelson wants us to be aliens, man. It'd be the greatest thing since the Apollo program for NASA. It'd be a huge influx of cash if they were extraterrestrial, intelligently controlled craft. It's wild, dude. Like, they're telling you and you're just saying, no, but what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? No.
That could there be a replication of life on Earth elsewhere in another solar system that is so big? Of course I believe that. The distances, it would have to be a very advanced civilization. The distances, light years, hundreds of light years, billions of light years. But whatever we find, we're going to tell you.
Thank you very much.
Great, and we'll move on to the next question. Please do identify yourself.
Thanks. This is Joey Roulette from Reuters. Question for Bill Nelson or any of the other panelists. So you've appointed a director of UAP research. Have you named someone to that role? And what kind of investment are you considering making in this? Is this going to be a new program office? Have you thought of funding figures, et cetera? Thanks.
Yes, we have. We've already appointed the person. They've been working there for a while now, like during this study, to help be a point of contact. And any budget discussions, of course, are part of a very intricate federal budget request, and so they're not something that we discuss openly. But we will certainly look at what resources need to be allocated.
Can you name the official who's in
We
that
will
role?
not give his name out now.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. We'll take another one from in the room.
Hello, Dan Rivers from British broadcaster ITV News. I heard the word stigma mentioned several times, that you want to remove the stigma. Is your message to pilots and other people that this is no longer the preserve of cranks and that you won't be laughed at and that you will take them seriously? Is that the takeaway?
That is exactly the message. I mean, at NASA, we're scientists. We love data. We love all data. And if there is something that needs to be reported, and we want people to be able to feel that they can report that. We spoke in the open hearing that we had.
But where? Where do they report it? That's the question.
May 31st. And we actually talked then about
to NASA
we wanted
anyway.
to remove the stigma, and we also did not tolerate any of the abuse that some of our members of the panel were receiving, particularly on social media, for doing this really important scientific study. So absolutely, we want pilots and both, as Bill said,
Did we hear that part? I'm going to rewind it because I think that's kind of important. It's important, especially to this channel. The members of their media of their team were harassed, especially online, and that's why they're hesitant to reveal names. And I think what they were doing was stalling, because obviously you're saying you're going to be transparent, and then you don't give the name of the new director. I think they realized, maybe even in real time, and I don't know how you overlook this, but I think they wanted to get the new director's information off of LinkedIn before they made his name available, because that's how these online harassment maniacs, sycophants, Thomas Fessler co-hosts, that's how they find them, through LinkedIn. And then they harass them to no end. And yeah, a lot of folks here know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's just wild. Again, this is now the second time that a panel of NASA scientists is talking about social media harassment and death threats.
31st. And we actually talked then about we wanted to remove the stigma, and we also did not tolerate any of the abuse that some of our members of the panel were receiving, particularly on social media, for doing this really important scientific study. So absolutely, we want pilots, and both, as Bill said, both private pilots, commercial pilots, military pilots to feel
where do they report it? Because commercial pilots and private pilots can't report it to Aero, and I don't think NASA has a reporting system for those pilots. So where? This is where I'm like, wait a second, NASA, you're full of shit. Like, where do they report it? Where do these pilots report it? And maybe even military pilots would want to report it to NASA just to get away from the man, the scary Pentagon and all those scary guys. Like, where do they report it? NARCAP? Do they report it to the FAA? Are you guys working with the FAA? Are you working with Aero? Are you, I'm Ted Rowe, has NARCAP, which is a whole nothing but pilot testimony on these objects. So I'd like to know that. Maybe somebody asked. We'll see.
I want to say, and I want to repeat the way I said it, we want to shift the conversation about UAPs from sensationalism to science.
I think of this in terms of the signs we see around for security, which say, if you see something, say something. I think in this context, we would summarize it as, if you see something, collect high-quality data on it, then we can learn.
Right.
If I may, I just noticed in the report the Go Fast incident was one that was picked out, and that had been held up as an example of a very credible sighting that you seem to be pouring doubt on. Can you just talk to that?
I mean, we looked at that as one example, and I think this is something that Aero has actually done a very good job of going through the events, and
so they're clearly working with Aero.
Are going to turn out, even if there are some events that in the end turn out to be something novel, most events are going to turn out to be conventional things, balloons, airplanes, and so on. I think of the process of discovery of anomalies as looking for a needle in a haystack. And if you want to find a needle in a haystack, you've got two choices.
What better way to destigmatize UFOs, UAPs than to attach NASA to it? And in a time where emerging threats are drone swarms, especially in this new digital era of all sorts of new ways for American assets to be attacked, American, points of interest, for example, the Twin Towers, or pick whatever site that stands for Americana, the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, where these things can be used to help destroy and cause division and cause chaos. They need pilots, commercial pilots, military pilots, and civilians to look at the sky. If they see something, say something, report it. Again, where Americans for Safe Aerospace has no plan to take civilian sightings into consideration. How big of an agency would you need to take in all of those sightings? I have no idea. How many phone calls would an agency like that get, you think, per day? Of misidentifications? And would that be a waste of time and money to try and find, like he said, the needle in the haystack? It's a conundrum, man. It's like, how do they do this? But the thing that they definitely need to do is to destigmatize it and make sure that at the very least, especially military pilots are reporting them, so that way they can get the shapes, the colors, the way these things move into an inventory, so that they could train newcomers and new people coming in. Hey, these are the things to look for as far as adversarial drones, garbage, yada yada yada, name it whatever you want. You know, and I think they're trying to add a seriousness to the conversation, but then you get, you know, juxtaposed to Ryan Graves showing up in Mexico next to fake mummies put together by desecrated bodies and animal parts. It's like, what do you think's going to hit the news stream? What do you think people are going to latch? I mean, for God's sakes, there are cakes being made of those mummified aliens. And the cakes look just like the damn alien. It's pretty actually impressive.
Either you know exactly what the needle looks like, and you design a very good filter to look for the needle. It's called match filtering in sort of AI work, machine learning, signal processing. Or you don't know what you're looking for. And with anomalies, that's really the case we're in. We're looking for things we don't understand. So if you want to find something strange in a haystack, you better know exactly what hay looks like. And you better be able to characterize that really well. And that's why in a process like this, and this is something that I think we bring to this as we look for anomalies, is you need to know what typical regular things look like under all conditions. You need to know what balloons look like when pilots see them, so under unusual conditions, so that you can eliminate those events. And that's why in identifying anomalies, understanding the normal is a very important part of it, and understanding that under different observing conditions, and collecting data in a uniform way. I mean, this is what we do when we study anomalies in space science or other areas of science. And what we're trying to do is bring this approach to this field by saying collect high quality data, understand the normal events, and that's how we move things forward.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the next question, please.
Hello, I'm Nomia.
Why is James Fox just standing back there?
Just to follow up on the stigma question, UAP, that term has been, used in part to destigmatize UFOs. The fact is, most people use UFOs. Most of the American public, most of the world use that term. So I wonder how much is the stigma still a problem for you, and what are you practically doing to about it, really?
Great question.
People? And my second very quick question. In your report, I noticed that you said AI is a very essential tool for identifying rare occurrences. Yesterday, we were at this big AI summit where you had 100 senators meeting all the big tech tycoons.
A lot of Brits.
Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg.
A lot of Brits.
And speaking to some senators afterwards, they said, we are concerned about AI. We need it to be regulated. Does that concern you? Or are you worried that it might hamper your work? Thank you very much.
Well, two big questions. First of all, do I personally believe that AI needs to have some boundaries? The answer to that for our existentialism, yes. Can you do that within the appropriate bounds so that, as I said in my remarks, that we're going to utilize AI as one of the tools as we search for what is an answer to the UAP. And so, no, I don't think that...
So everybody's saying that the FAA, the Sparky Lady, welcome, by the way. Haven't seen you in a while. Oh, yeah, I haven't seen you. What am I talking about? The FAA used to have people refer to it to an actual UFO organization, and they even said the name of the organization right in the book, but I can't remember it. Haha. So the FAA had a guide, and at the back of the book was, if you see anomalous things, there was a phone number, and that phone number, if I'm not mistaken, was basically went right to MUFON and Bob Bigelow. Oh, it either went right into MUFON or I'm confusing it with Bob Bigelow bought the MUFON stuff and then that was part of it, or the organization at the back of the book was owned by Bob Bigelow and all of that data went straight to him, data that he refuses to release. So yeah, so that's gone. Forget about that. You're not going to get that.
Any attempts to that the Congress has underway to try to write a law that would approve.
And they also took that number out of the FAA handbook because they don't do that anymore.
Appropriately put guardrails around AI for other reasons is in any way going to inhibit us from utilizing the tools of AI to help us in our quest on this specific issue. Now, what was your other question?
Just how do you destigmatize the whole thing? Because I know you call it UAPs, but
the whole world calls it.
Refer it to in that way.
Yeah. Well, there's a mindset. We all are entertained by Indiana Jones in the Amazon and finding the crystal skull. So there's a lot of folklore out there. That's why we entered the stage, the arena, to try to get into this from a science point.
Kill the folklore.
I think you can blame the X-Files for a lot of this as well.
That possibly too, but just remember what I said. We NASA are trying to shift it from sensationalism to science.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
And we do have a long line in the room, but I want to give a couple chances to some people on the phone line, so I'm going to go to the phone for our first question there. Please do introduce yourself and ask your question. The phone, can you hear me?
Our first question is from Marcia Dunn with the Associated Press. Your line is open.
Yes, hi, Marcia Dunn, AP. I'm already receiving emails on Area 51 in Roswell, so I would like to ask Mr. Sperkel.
See, they're all laughing.
How much were you and your fellow panel members hassled or bombarded by this sort of thing during the course of your study? And for NASA, are you not naming the director of UAP research for this very reason, so that they're not hassled and bombarded by the fringe element? Thanks.
Now, that's the second question, or the second time, or it's not a question, but it's the first question about harassment, but it's the second time now why they're asking about why this guy is being hidden or why they're keeping his name under wraps. That's just, and that's the AP asking, man. That's the AP asking. So the second that any journalist or any scientist or anyone with any credentials that you want looking at this, start looking at it, maniacs like Sawan and the Lou crew and all sorts of other folks on top of that, find these people on sites like LinkedIn, get their email addresses, get their employers, hound not only them, but their employers, their family members, all sorts of people. So it's, it's hilarious because yesterday I got into a little tiff with Tim McMillan, and maybe we'll show the tweet so we can get it exact. But like this idea, like Tim McMillan was pissed off that NASA didn't give the name of this guy. It's like, why would they when you, Tim McMillan, have badmouthed Susan Goff, you've badmouthed Sean Kirkpatrick, and you badmouth Gary Reed, and you put some serious allegations, especially on Gary Reed, that have never been followed up, that were nothing but hit pieces on these people. And you go on that UFO podcast and just talk shit about the director of Aero, like all of his colleagues don't like him. And you have no proof of that. You're just saying that shit because you're Tim McMillan, the guy on the debrief, because you broke the Dave Grush story. You guys took on the story that no other journalistic entity would touch with a 10-foot pole. Congratulations, bro. Congratulations on creating the chaos. But this idea of you being pissed off that they're not releasing his name, why? If they did, you'd write an article about why he's not right for the position, or how, you know, he's not liked in the office by his colleagues, or how he, you know, contributes to the administrative terrorism that Lou Elizondo didn't experience, turns out. Like, this is such a oh man, I'm trying not to curse on this show. I really, really am trying.
You know, I would divide kind of emails and tweets into two types, right? There's some where people honestly are curious about things they've seen, they've heard. You know, there are things that are hard to respond to, like, my uncle who's dead saw something strange, and you get a report. And, you know, that's not useful, but that's harmless. On the other hand, one of the things that happened during the study, and this may be part of a bigger discussion of cultural behavior on social media.
Wow.
Where people behave badly, and I would say harassed some of our panel members. And that, I think, was very inappropriate behavior one doesn't want to see. Sadly, I think it's part of a deeper problem when people somehow feel on the web, on social media, they can be nasty and hostile, and sadly, some of our panel members experience that.
Yeah, I would just simply add to that to say that not only were some of the things that our panel members received during the course of this study simple trolling, some of them actually rose to actual threats. And as a result, you know, we at NASA take, you know, the sanctity of the scientific process and the security and safety of our team extremely seriously. And yes, that's in part why we are not splashing the name of our new director out there, because science needs to be free. Science needs to undergo a real and rigorous and rational process, and you need the freedom of thought to be able to do that. Some of the threats and the harassment have been beyond the pale, quite frankly, towards some of our panelists. And yes,
beyond the pale. Yeah. Yeah. And you can check out Disclosure Tonight for some of those folks that love participating in beyond the pale type harassment.
Yes, it's important that science be free as part of that process.
Thank you so much. We will go to another question on the phone, please. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Our next question comes from Tom Clark with Sky News London. Your line is open.
Hello.
Oh, hi there. Thank you very much for taking my question. I want to understand how much, you won't give us an idea of money, but how many assets or new research programs will be devoted to this by the administration. Because it strikes me that although the argument for aviation safety is clear, there are other departments and agencies responsible for that particular thing. And as the report concludes, the likelihood of there being extraterrestrial explanations or truly scientific explanations for many of these phenomena is very, very small. Shouldn't NASA devote its research budgets and its efforts to those much more likely and tangible signs of extraterrestrial life through things like the James Webb Space Telescope or extrasolar planets detection?
Great question.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So yes, obviously we don't discuss budget openly, but we are committed to supporting the whole of government study into UAP. All of our data are open. In fact, if you look at the report, you'll see a very large sort of
you're not answering the question.
Background material or supplemental material in there, because we literally released everything because that's what we do at NASA. We do have our key agency goals. We have obviously our goals in the Science Mission Directorate, our themes that we follow, and one of those, as the administrator described,
not answering the question.
Elsewhere. And we do that, and he described the research beautifully. I think he may be going for my job, actually, but he described the research so well that what we need to find is a rocky planet around a hospitable star that isn't too violent, that is in just that right place, that has signatures of water and signatures of carbon, so the building blocks of life.
Okay.
And we continue to strive to do that. We do that with the James Webb Telescope. We'll be doing that when we launch the Nancy Grace Roman Telescope, that even has a coronagraph around it to block out the light of the neighboring stars and really let us look at those
not answering
those
the question.
planets. And then beyond that, the next big telescope recommended by the Astrophysics Decadal is the Habitable Worlds Observatory, actually a mission designed to look for hospitable and find like Earth 2.0 in another stellar system. And so they really are in the forefront of our goals at NASA. So thanks so much for the question.
No. Yes, please follow up.
To clarify something, will you be devoting any new resource or research projects to this particular aim then, given that's where the interesting questions really are? Should NASA spend time and budget
answer the question
pursuing the much less likely?
This is what I love about British news. They don't let you off with just fucking giving a bullshit bloated answer. When they want an answer to something, they will say, no. Let me clarify, because clearly you're not understanding me. And I'm surprised that, clearly, like, neither one of them wanted to answer that question. Nobody on that panel wanted to answer that question. And I wonder why. Like, if you guys aren't finding anything, why are we devoting time to this? Like, honestly, we could be, how much of the budget is going to this? Or is this just kind of like a show? Yeah, that answer kind of makes it feel a little bit like a show. Like, I think, and a show not because they're covering something up, a show of, like, we have to destigmatize this because this is going to be a problem, a security problem real soon. And so we need to have press conferences like this to get the idea out there that it's okay to talk about these things. It's cool. You saw something weird? Just tell me about it. Just tell me about it so we can write it down, we can catalog it, and we can get an idea of what our enemies are doing more than what the aliens are doing. It's wild. Kind of wild.
Task of finding signs of extraterrestrial life in small objects within or close to the Earth's atmosphere.
So, most of obviously our instruments are designed to look for the phenomena that we study at NASA. If any of our data are useful, if any of our data are applicable, then we absolutely will be devoting that and turning that over through our liaison to the whole of government approach. We are not at this time intending to design a mission to do this. That is not part of our kind of overarching NASA direction. We are looking at providing some research support. So if somebody wants to write a research proposal, send it in through the regular channels. We will be looking for ways to do that. And we also talked about
I know a couple: Galileo Project, America for Safe Aerospace. I'm sure they'll be looking for some kind of government contract to help you guys with this.
Supporting sort of the citizen science and the broader repository of data. Dan, do you want to add to that?
NASA's data are free and publicly accessible for the
You're not
entire
answering the
world
question.
to download. And we pride ourselves on that fact. And it's this openness of data and our approach, which is why we're all here today. To answer your specific question about devoting research budgets to the potentially truly interesting ones, well, I think as David said, you have to understand the chaff in order to really understand and pinpoint the potentially interesting ones, okay? So we are in such a data-poor regime at the moment that we need to turn it into a data-rich one to do that. And we employ NASA's assets, many other partners' assets as well in that quest.
And if your question suggests, and I do not know that it does, but if it suggests that NASA ought to keep its nose out of this, well, let me tell you, NASA is not a place that's going to hide its head in the sand. Now, is there interest in this phenomenon in other agencies? In my previous life in the Senate, I was privy to talk to the Navy pilots and to see the video of what they encountered off the coast of California in 2004.
Yeah,
That
we've
was
all
in
seen
a
the video.
classified setting then. But this is now. And you have now seen that video. And you have heard from those former Navy pilots. Is that of a concern to the Department of Defense? Of course it is. Therefore, we're going to continue our search from a scientific point of view. It's going to be, if those other agencies continued their search, we're going to be glad to join in with them. But our stuff is going to be open.
Great. I'm going to take one more from the phone before we go back to the floor. I
respectfully disagree, Hakeem. I think the question is fair. It's a fair question. If so far what you're looking, first of all, you don't like. It's been a year. It's been a year. You guys have had a year to look at this. Okay, you've had a year to coordinate with Aero. You've had a year to coordinate your systems and collect data with your systems. You're telling me NASA doesn't have the systems and camera systems in place to look at certain parts of the sky and get more clarification? Come on. Like, this idea that it's data poor, it's kind of a piss poor excuse. They should have more data at this point, personally, I think. I appreciate the effort. Doesn't mean we shouldn't be looking at it. But the question is, are they genuinely looking at it? Because it's been a year now. Like, we should have, we're getting a report, and that report so far in a year, they haven't found any proof of extraterrestrial life. But here they are telling us at the same time, like, there's not enough data. Like, we need it to be data rich, and it's data poor. Again, science is slow. This could take 5, 6, 10, 20, 30, 50 years. Who knows? Who knows? But I'm curious to know how long NASA's going to stick with this, and how big are the budgets going to get, and where are those budgets coming from? What are they being taken from? Those are important questions, especially when it comes to taxpayer dollars.
We have a lot of questions. I'm going to hope we can stick to sort of one per person and see how many we can get through. So one more from the phone, please.
Our next question comes from Jeff Faust with Space News. Your line is open.
Hi. I know the press release states that NASA is still evaluating the independent study team's report and its recommendations. Does NASA plan to publish a formal response to the report and its recommendations? And if so, what timeline can we expect to see that?
So let me give you a quick preview about how this works. So we have only very recently received the report, and what you have seen today in our press release represents our initial actions in recognition of the urgency of this matter. And yes, we will be following up as appropriate with additional actions, but of course we need additional time to fully ingest the recommendations and act on them in light of budget and many other priorities. But we'll be announcing more in the future.
Great, thank you. Please, back to the room. Identify yourself too, please.
Good morning, Sam Cabral with BBC News Digital. We've been talking a lot about shift from sensationalism to science today. Has NASA been in touch with the Mexican authorities about the rather sensational revelations earlier this week of 2 allegedly non-human corpses? And what, if any, importance do you attach to these discoveries?
I think David had a prep for that one.
Well, this is something that I know I've only seen on Twitter. So it's, when we have unusual things, you want to make data public. I think of this as like NASA has one of the most valuable samples from outer space, lunar rocks. What do? We make them available to any scientists who want to work on this. We don't know the nature of those samples that were shown in front of them. If I was the Mexican government, I would are making recommendations to the Mexican government. That's not our charge here. We're doing this for NASA. My recommendation was, if you have something strange, make samples available to the world scientific community, and we'll see what's there.
I'll just add that one of the main goals of what we're trying to do here today is to move conjecture and conspiracy towards science and sanity, and you do that with data, as David says. And that's the whole purpose of this study and this roadmap.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Brandy Vincent from Defense Scoop. Thank you all for doing this. I actually have 2 lines of questions, if it's okay. First, for Ms. Fox, what's the timeline and immediate actions that NASA is pursuing specifically with Arrow now that the report has been completed? And what mechanisms are NASA and DoD really using to share information and collaborate securely? And do you see more coming? And then separately, for Mr. Spergel, I noticed in the final report a lot of the images and media that were added were from DoD, snapshots that we'd previously seen from DoD data. Not much from FAA, if anything, not from other agencies. Can you speak to why that is?
Good question.
And what are you used beyond DoD to inform your report?
Dr. Fox, Dr. Spergel, I'll pass it to you guys.
Sure. So, yes, our immediate actions, I think there was such a lot in those questions. So the immediate actions, we've established our director of UAP research. They're working across the whole of government. They're working very closely with Arrow. They are the sort of central point for all of the collaboration. I'm not sure what else you asked, I'm sorry.
What mechanisms are you using to share data and information with the Defense Department?
All mechanisms available to us. As Dan eloquently said, all of our data are open and public. So actually, I mean, we share everything with everybody, so everybody can access our NASA data.
I mean, do you have like a specific repository or mechanism or channel specifically with DoD where you're sharing information? Can you just expand a little on how
this is the kind of questioning we need, like this, and the ability to ask questions like this, the time.
Yeah, sure, I'm happy to handle that. So as Nikki beautifully said, all of NASA's data is open and accessible to the public. If DoD on a specific instance need to tap our expertise, then there are obviously secure ways of doing that, and we've done that by appointing our liaison officer. And yes, we know how to talk to DoD in a classified space. But again, most of what we do is unclassified, and for good reason.
And the answer is actually straightforward, that Arrow is the lead agency in the government. So FAA reported events go to Arrow. So they're the central collection agency, and that actually, if you go to the Arrow site, they have a pretty complete list of things they've analyzed and are trying to make public. Though with Arrow, and this is just something I think is worth repeating in the context of looking at images that come from military satellites and intelligence community, it's important to remember that images taken by military instruments are classified, not because of what's in the image, but because of the nature of the measuring instrument. And I think this is one of the unique things that NASA brings here, is NASA is about openness and transparency. When NASA makes measurements, NASA has across all of it does, this program of making its data open and available. And of course, because it's not making measurements with classified instruments, that enables it to do this. And that one of the things that NASA brings to this space.
Thank you. And just a really quick clarification, because I think it's important. The NASA Aero liaison, is that official, the same as your new UAP head of research?
This guy's pissed. He's like, what the fuck? Oh, I got questions.
All right, one more in the room before we go back to the phones for a couple.
They just ignoring that question?
Benson. I work for a Danish newspaper called Berlingske. My question is for Mr. Nelson. You said at the beginning of the meeting that that NASA will be transparent. Well, a month and a half ago, Mr. David Grush said under oath in Congress that the U.S. government is in possession of UAPs and extraterrestrial life. How can you be sure at NASA that other parts of the U.S. government is being transparent?
I don't speak for other parts of the government, but I can tell you NASA, which I speak for, is open and transparent with our data.
Do you believe what Mr. David Grush said, or is he lying?
I love this. I did see this moment.
You would want me to give a personal opinion?
Yes, please.
Of what he said. What he said, if I recall having seen this on the nightly news, was that he had a friend that knew where a warehouse was that had an UFO locked up in a warehouse. He also said he had another friend that said that he had parts of an alien. Whatever he said, where's the evidence?
Where's the evidence, buddy?
My response.
Excuse me. He also said that he did interview over 40 employees at the Pentagon.
Long time ago, there was a TV show, Jack Friday, and he used to say, just the facts, just the facts.
The character's name wasn't Jack Friday. He's mixing up the character's name with the guy's real name. It's from Dragnet. He's talking about Dragnet. And I love that he just whipped out a Dragnet reference. Just the facts. Just the facts. And David Grush has no facts. And I think it's pretty clear that not only this panel, but the intelligence community and lawmakers that are on the right committees have listened, have heard, know exactly what he said, the people he's interviewed, and have come to the conclusion that he's been fooled. He's been fooled. He's been fooled, or he's just spreading really bad information. Either way, it's a problem.
Show me the evidence.
Show me the evidence, Dave Grush. Jeremy
All right,
Corbell,
we'll go
Bob
to the
Lazar.
phones. Again, I know
George
we have
Knapp,
lots of questions, but I'm going to try to keep us to just to one for each
Stephen
person.
Greer,
And
Lou
so next
Elizondo.
person on the phone, go ahead and introduce yourself.
The next question comes from Gina Cesari with ABC News. Your line is open.
This is for Senator Nelson. Your report mentioned that AI could be very useful in helping in this investigation. How do you see that, sir?
Well, why limit us in anything in interpretation of data? And AI is just coming on the scene to be explored in all areas. So why should we limit any technological tool in analyzing data that we have? I said AI was one of the things that we were going to employ.
We use AI or artificial intelligence and machine learning throughout our NASA science portfolio. It is an amazing tool for helping us to actually find often signatures that are sort of buried in data. And so a lot of our data are just sort of wiggly line plots. We get excited about wiggly line plots, by the way. But sometimes you see the wiggles and you miss a signal in there. And by using artificial intelligence, we can often find signatures. So one example we've had is to be able to find signatures of superstorms using very old data that really is before sort of like routine scientific satellite data. And it's amazing. And so just being able to use those techniques often can allow us to find things, to actually find the needle. As David so eloquently said, once you've actually really it also helps us to really characterize the hay. And so you can start subtracting the hay and look for the needles behind.
So let me just take this moment to try to demystify AI and ML.
Thank you.
When, as scientists, and probably many of you in high school were trained to do this, we have some data. You took your data, you drew a graph, you put a line through it. You had data in 2 dimensions, X and Y. Right now, much of our data is in a much higher dimensional space. And if you're working with something like ChatGPT, it's in a high-dimensional space of language, or tokens, if you want to get technical, with 12,000 tokens in the ChatGPT 3.5, for example. And machine learning is a powerful tool for representing functions in high-dimensional space. That means we get to work with data in a high-dimensional space. AI is very powerful, but it's no more powerful than the data you give it. It's a way of, this is why it's very powerful, say, with NASA's weather and climate data. We've got an incredible amount of data, and it's data that you want to do more with than just put a line on a graph. You want to extract all that information or more information in that high-dimensional space, and I think we're just really discovering the power of that tool, and it's one of the tools NASA and not just scientists, but I think a lot of people in a lot of different industries are using to learn new things about high-dimensional data. But it always comes back to the data you feed into your analysis, whether it's a line on a graph paper or a high-dimensional space explored with machine learning. And if you don't got good data, you're not going to learn things.
I'm going to add one sentence. Sorry. High dimensional does not mean high space dimensions, not interdimensional travel. We're talking about multiple parameters here. Okay.
Great. We are coming close to time. I want to get two more questions, and we're going to do one on the phone and one more in the room. And hopefully, if we keep our questions short and our answers short, we'll get to those two. For anybody who's here who hasn't had a chance to ask a question, you are more than welcome to send an email, and we will try to get you answers as quickly as possible. So one more on the phone, please.
Yes, our next question comes from Peggy Holliger with Financial Times. Your line is open.
Thank you very much, and thank you for allowing me to ask a question. I'm curious about you saying here that you want to rope in crowdsourcing, but also you speak specifically about the potential of using commercial assets as well as your own. I'm curious about, can you just give me a bit more detail how you will do that? Will that be through commercial contracts, or will you ask for voluntary reportings of sightings? And also, I think that's when you talk a lot about the importance of sensor, I'm going to use the word harmonization, because there's no kind of harmonization between the way the sensors work. Presumably that would be the same for the use of commercial assets. How does that use of commercial assets and crowdsourcing square with the sensor harmonization that you talk about? And who's going to pay for all this? Thank you.
So let me just say a little bit about crowdsourcing. Much of what we have in mind is taking advantage of the fact that there's several billion of these floating around, right? And they take, I'm holding up a cell phone for those on the radio. They take wonderful, high-quality images, have high-quality metadata, record local magnetic field, sound, gravitational field. There's a wealth of data that a cell phone takes, and you can imagine designing apps that make the images relatively tamper-free. You can at least make it hard to do. And I think if we have a collection where interesting events are collected by citizens, hosted, and you have multiple images of the same event, we'll be able to learn a lot.
Yeah.
And,
so there you go. I mean, so he's basically saying if there's a huge sighting, take your phone out and record it from multiple angles, because he's right. Like, if you have 5 phones, if you have 100 phones, if you have 1,000 phones, all trained at one event, that's 1,000 different angles. That's 1,000 different points of metadata. You could get a real goddamn good idea of what you're looking at or what's in the sky. You're not going to get the answer of where it comes from or what's inside of it. But there's a lot of other things that you can get, especially if it displays any one of the 5 observables that we keep hearing about that we've yet to see in any sort of official capacity.
NASA supports is citizen science. And I think that the
so
idea
basically
that
it has to go viral before they look at it.
Collect data, we aggregate the data, and we learn from it. is
aggregate the data and
important in this context, and just, I think, in some ways, an opportunity to engage the broader public in doing science.
Great. Our last question, please, from the floor.
Yep. Thank you all for doing this. Joe Khalil with News Nation. My first question is, you've described harassment of some of the panelists. While that is horrible and never a good thing, it does sort of come with the nature of public officials. You know, Mr. Nelson, as a senator, lawmakers get that kind of thing all the time. Is that the justification for keeping this new position, Director of UAP Research, private? Do you plan on doing that forever? Is that a temporary thing? Because it seems to cut against the dedication to being open and transparent if this person forever is not going to be revealed, their identity, who they are.
Yeah.
Okay. So at the time, yes, we are withholding that name. Let's not forget that we've only just received this report. And what we need to do now as an agency is come together and provide a cohesive and coherent response to it that addresses multiple findings and recommendations, okay? We're only announcing initial actions today. Will that person's name be disclosed, to answer your specific question? Potentially, yes. But again, we need to ensure that the scientific process and method is free, okay? That's my response.
Thank you. And just lastly, the report says that you relied on unclassified material. You've given a very understandable description for why the DoD classifies certain images and videos. Why did you all not have access to classified material, and could you have, done that?
I have. So just understand that. Let the committee speak for themselves.
So one of the reasons that we restricted ourselves, this study, to unclassified data is because we can speak openly about it. And in so doing, we're aiming, again, to alter the discourse from sensationalism to science, as Administrator Nelson beautifully said. NASA personnel, as appropriate, know how to talk to DoD on a classified basis.
That makes sense. And it's the same line we got from Avi Loeb when we asked him, will you take government dollars to fund the Galileo project? And he gave this exact answer. No, I can't. Because the second that I do, that means that whatever I do get, if it's classified, they can hold me from talking about it. They can hold me from sharing it. So it makes sense that NASA is not communicating on classified material with the DoD, partly because they probably don't have the clearance to. And the second reason is because, again, it clouds what they can share. It doesn't allow them to be open and transparent. And to me, I know it's like, well, what do you mean? You gotta look at the material. I get it. I understand. But it has to be something that's not classified. Now, if the military wants to declassify some stuff, and we all know that there's more than enough stuff that can be declassified that's decades old. For fuck's sake, the Nimitz Go Fast and Tic Tac, those were all, 2004. Not all of them, but most of them were around 2004, 2007. So, those are almost 20 years old. Like, can we get all the data on those 3 videos since they're clearly declassified? Let's start there. Like, I would love somebody to ask them a question like, what about the data on the 3 videos that the senator is claiming he saw in a classified setting and now is public? We know that video, we don't have all the data. So therefore, Senator, do you have access to that missing data? Did you ever see that missing data? Did you see a longer version of the video that convinces you that it's something unexplainable, or that needle in the haystack as we keep referring to?
By basis, but the purpose of this study was to tell us what open data we could use
in combination with the power of science to move our understanding forward. Okay? That was the purpose, and we're speaking about it openly today.
And so one of the challenges
I'm afraid we do have to wrap up.
That's
we
it.
are at
Okay,
time.
here's another critique. An hour is not long enough. And here's the thing. You only took questions for about, I think it was a half hour. We need an open 2-hour, 3-hour forum where people can ask follow-up questions, and your feet are held to the fire. Just as much as I want Lou Elizondo and Dave Grush's feet held to the fire, I want Bill Nelson and all of these panelists to answer questions under fire from the public. Not only from journalists, but average citizens. As much as I disagree with James Fox, hats off to him for actually showing up there. I will give him credit for that. That I will say, hey man, like, good on you. He clearly cares. Like, I don't think James Fox is belief. He is belief manifested. But at least he's asking questions. That I'll give him. But please, next time you approach a senator or a congressman, get their name right, Mr. Fox. Get their name right. I think these questions need to be sharper. And the thing is I will allow the room for these first, because how many times in history have people had the opportunity to ask a panel like this, a NASA scientific panel about UFOs? This is very, very rare. Very rare. And a half hour is clearly not enough time. So if I had advice for NASA, have an open town hall that is multiple hours long and divide the panel so you could do a long town hall that focuses on nothing but this, so we can get rid of the stigma. If you want to get rid of the stigma, that means that you have to sit here and listen to all the questions, even the crazy ones, and add your scientific rationality to the crazy statements. We need you guys to answer these things in public, so therefore we can set a new bar, so we can get rid of the crazy talk and set a new bar, not only for the kinds of stories and questions we ask, but like evidence, a new bar of evidence that is met and then overflows. So therefore it is undeniable. It does seem like they're genuinely trying to get to an answer. Like they want an answer just as bad as anybody else. They just don't have the data. They don't have the data. And what's out in the public forum right now, none of it is good enough. I mean, just look at the Mexican debacle from 2 days ago. Like the data, it's poor. It's piss poor data. And nobody's taking it seriously. You know, so that's the NASA presentation. But what I found really funny about this, and I just bookmarked this is hilarious. Ryan Graves riding the ET bicycle, that classic ET meme of ET sitting in the basket with a little cloth around his head, but instead of ET, it's the mummies from the Mexican presentation, and Ryan Graves is wearing a sombrero. That description was for all my folks out there podcast land. But this was what I found hilarious, is this little moment right here on Thomas Fessler's channel just the other night. And again, fair use. This is covered under fair use. This is transformative work. We're educating the public and critiquing the videos we are sharing. Again, this is covered under fair use and allowable by law. This is Thomas Fessler commenting, and what's hilarious is we've got Richard Doty and Sawan commenting on the moment where the panel starts speaking about harassment.
On the other hand, one of the things that happened during the study, and this may be part of a bigger discussion of cultural behavior on social media, where people behave badly.
And I love this. The King Milk for Harassment Archive made this. And right here in the corner, this is hilarious. The missing producer, Gary, who wrote us an email about how Thomas Fessler and Lou Elizondo and Rob Heatherly love to dox people. And they actively look to dox people and discredit people that go against the Lou Elizondo narrative. Gary, the producer's missing. I still haven't gotten a response email from him. And Thomas Fessler loves speaking on his behalf, even though he's missing. Like nobody's heard from Gary. So interesting that there.
And I would say harassed some of our panel members. And that, I think, was very inappropriate behavior one doesn't want to see. Sadly, I think it's part of a deeper problem when people somehow feel on the web, on social media, they can be
he's just like, I gotta get out of
nasty
here.
and hostile.
Gotta get out of here.
And sadly, some of our panel members experience.
So Juan's real quiet on this one.
I would just simply add to that to say that not only were some of the things that our panel members received during the course of this study simple trolling, some of them actually rose to actual threats. And as a result, we at NASA take the sanctity of the scientific process and the security and safety of our team extremely seriously. And yes, that's in part why we are not splashing the name of our new director out there, because science needs to be free. Science needs to undergo a real and rigorous and rational process, and you need the freedom of thought to be able to do that. Some of the threats and the harassment have been beyond the pale, quite frankly, towards some of our panelists. And yes, it's important that science be free as part of that process.
Oh my God.
Thank you so much. We will go to another question on the phone, please. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Now they got his name. Look, they're so excited. They're so excited. Now they got his name. They love it. Now they're going to try and find him and harass the shit out of him because they know before he even speaks, they're going to already harass him. And this is where it comes from. This is one of the starting points is this show. It comes from this garbage right here. So if you watch this show, if you support this show, if you donate to this show, you are donating to harassment, you're donating and supporting doxing, you're donating and supporting misogyny, homophobia, racism, the whole nine, the entire gamut, because this gentleman who he has as a co-host on his show is the guy they're talking about. So Juan is the one that they're talking about when they speak about harassment that goes beyond the pale. And then the other night he had Rick Doty as a co-host, who's also now making threats on behalf of Thomas Fessler. Like, this is everything wrong. And this is exactly why nobody takes this seriously, is shows and people and thoughts and groups like this. So I just wanted to get that in there because I just find it hilarious, that these two guys, who are responsible for a lot of this garbage and that have admitted, and their producers have admitted to this garbage and this stuff that they do. And they just deny in their gross, creepy, yucky little ways. And yeah, man, it's just like, they got my attention now. And now I'm just like, I want to call this show out at every turn I get. And I don't care if it gets some more viewers, because I think most of his viewers are watching for the cringe. They're not watching because he's good. They're watching because it's a train wreck. It's watching a car crash. It's like you can't take your eyes off it sometimes. It's not because it's good. Anyway. But yeah, so that's the show. You guys. All right. I mean, we had the link up there. So no calls today. No worries. Not a problem. We could get it in next time, you guys. I did put the link up late, so I know sometimes people get shy when it comes to talking on hold on a second. Let me just turn this volume down here. When it comes to calling into shows, I know some people can get nervous with that stuff. But anyway, you guys, Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Lou Reviews. I'm so happy that I got to see Zoltan here. I haven't seen that name in so long. Lucy Day, Simon Fly, Silly Goose, X Flies, Ed Monstar, Entropic Horizon, Silly Goose, Wise Monkey, Kimball Mortensen, Artisan Tony, Yoshi. Thank you guys all so much. Torso, if I missed anybody, apologies. James Craig, Chicago 420. Thanks for hanging out, you guys. This was a fun show. Man, what a busy week. What a busy week. I think, how many shows have we done? 4? Holy cow. Well, you guys, if you enjoyed the show, of course, like, share, subscribe. If you can, check out our Patreon. That's a great way to support the show. The show is also on podcasts, so if you want to listen on podcasts, okay, yeah. If you want to listen on podcasts, we're available there. Check us out on Spreaker or wherever you find your podcasts. I know we're also on SoundCloud. So give us a rate and review there. It goes a long way. Thank you guys again for embarking on this journey of discovery together. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and thank you for subscribing and hanging out with us here on Lou Reviews. Until next time, have a great day. Enjoy your weekend, guys. Enjoy your Friday night. I know I am. I'm out of here. Peace.